Alright, this video is for a subscriber. Brett, you're working on a Voyager class Prime series, Optimus Prime, or animated series. Yeah, one of them. Unfortunately, I never bought any of those figures, so I'm not familiar with that one at all. I don't know if I'll be much help on helping you modify it. I'll turn this video into how I start my figures off, the kind of paints I've went through over the years. I can make another video after that if you got any other questions from that stuff on. So I've got a few videos uploaded, some older ones of slideshow pictures, and then some newer ones with actual video. Last one I can think of was the Grimlock, Fall of Cybertron Grimlock. Now this is Fall of Cybertron Optimus Prime Deluxe Series. As you can see, I take them apart in many pieces to paint them. I get little Tupperware dishes and separate the pieces. I used to only take like one leg apart at a time. Sometimes I still will if I'm working on a large leader class figure, something with a lot of parts, and I don't feel like having a puzzle to put back together at the end. I'll do one side at a time. That way, when I take the other side apart, I can be putting together the first side I took apart. If that made sense. Sorry, I haven't done much talking this morning. Let me get all these words out right. So back in the day, these are the paints I used. I started with model cars probably 30 years ago. And these are some of the last model cars I did as a kid. I'm probably at the best of my abilities of doing model cars is when I finished these few. I started with the old school enamel spray paints, the testers, little cheap paints, enamels. Not those. I later grew to using actual automotive paint, thanks to my father, which painted custom motorcycles for a while when I was a teenager. So at the age of 12, 13, the last few years, I think up to 15, I was doing these model cars. So I finally grew to using actual car paint. And it's held up over the years. We've had customizers, including myself, experiment with the actual base coat, clear coat car paint. These are all House of Color. I updated this one years back with the newer wheels, but it's as old as these two. These are all 20 years old or more. Paint's still nice. The only thing about using that kind of paint on the Transformers is you have so many moving parts. And this paint, since it has catalyst in it, hardener, it's like a shell. So when you go to move a part on a Transformer or something, you will get paint chipping, flaking. So that's the downside to using that. Of course, the upside is it'll last a long time. Have a high gloss. So I've experimented when I got to Transformers with the enamels, with the urethane, automotive paint. Finally, and started airbrushing with the lacquers, spray lacquers, even the Model Master. Still use these sometimes. For the most part, when I want a metallic look and the real dry brush look, I'm going with these Model Master Tester lacquer. The one coat lacquer, the lacquer system. And then their clear coat is this wet look clear. The only thing is, when it comes to spray painting, I've had 30 years of painting. You've got to get a finesse to spraying that nozzle, or you're going to have a mess on your part. Because I've seen a lot of people when they first start spray painting, they'll just hold that nozzle down and go slow over that piece, and it'll just, it'll ruin the piece almost. So definitely get your technique down before you start spraying your nice parts on your figure you just took apart. Of course, we got a lot more steps before you're ready to paint. So you're in the taking apart, cutting up, modifying stage. So my advice is just go for it, man. Just start taking it apart in little pieces. You said something about modifying the back. Maybe take the legs and arms off, and keep the torso together. Start modifying from there. That way you can work with the piece in your hand a little better without arms and legs in the way. Get you a Dremel tool. Get you some X-Acto knife, Dremel tool. I've used a hacksaw before and then clean the edges up with a Dremel tool, sandpaper, file. You know, tools are what makes the job. So gather your tools, see what kind of paint you're going to use. As far as my brush paints, I've also went to the acrylic Model Master. So I use a combination nowadays of lacquer and acrylic. So these are the best I've come across for the majority of plastic out there. Now you need to prep your plastic before you paint any of it. It has, what is it called? A release agent. It's like a silicone film on it where they pop it out of the mold from the factory, from the assembly line. When the little piece gets made and poured into a little mold pan, stamped out. It has a film on it. It's real greasy. You gotta wash that off. I use dish soap, hot water, toothbrush, and then take you some 1000 grit sandpaper. Don't go too coarse sandpaper. Don't go down to 600 or finer, because you'll leave scratches in there that'll show through the paint. So with a really fine sandpaper, 1000, even 1200, and scuff up your big flat surfaces. Get it ready for paint best you can. Do all your modifying, building, and get it mocked up. You may have to put it all back together and get it built if you're doing a lot of modifying, and then tear it back apart and have it ready for paint. So it's a lot bigger process than just painting them. But go for it, man. When you get to a part that you're stuck, concentrate on it. Send me